evening, and this is another episode of the Galen Eagle podcast. This is our third season, and this season we are talking about entrepreneurship. Nice to meet you all, and greetings from Galen. My name is Katherine Meighan. I'm a lecturer here at Galen and also a member of the executive team for the Chamber of Commerce. I sit in the position of VP of Services, and I also work in the private sector in a BPO. So nice to meet you all. And today we have quite a busy session to discuss the nature of entrepreneurship, where we are in terms of the entrepreneurial ecosystem, and also we would like to introduce you to two persons that we have with us, Miss Amilin Mendez and Mr. Henry Wade. Amilin Mendez is here representing the UNDP, and she'll tell us more about that in the next few. And we have Mr. Henry Wade, who is here representing IDB Labs. All right, we have a full lineup as mentioned before, so let's just jump right into it. So tell us a little bit more about yourself, Amilin.
Thank you so much, Katherine. I'm really happy to be here with you and Henry today and to share this information with the students from Galen, past and present. First of all, I am really excited. So let's get that off. I am the Digitization and Inclusive Growth Project Manager at UNDP. Just a little bit about our organization. It's the United Nations Development Program. We are an global NGO. So we work with different partners, including the government, civil society organizations, the private sector, and also academia. So we're very happy to share what we have to offer to MSMEs here in Belize specifically. Our work is country specific. While we have a lot of tools and templates, we always look for what is specific and suits Belizean context. So that's a little bit about our background and our engagement. And as for me, I've been working in development field for about 10 years now. So I'm happy to share with the students today.
All right, wonderful. So Henry, can we also do a quick little introduction? Again, just a reminder, Henry Wade is representing IDB Lab.
Yes, good evening again, Katherine. Greetings to Amilin, a wonderful colleague. Yes, so Henry Wade, I am the private sector development consultant at IDB Lab. And specifically, my role is the supervision and implementation of IDB Lab portfolio projects here in Belize in terms of providing oversight, technical advice to ensure that the portfolio achieves its developmental objectives, which are two-part: impact and innovation, of course. As you mentioned, I work with IDB Lab, which is part of the larger IDB group, focusing specifically on the private sector. But a little bit of information on IDB Lab. IDB Lab is actually the innovation laboratory of the Inter-American Development Group. And we pride ourselves as being the leading source of development finance and expertise for improving lives both in Latin America and the Caribbean. So our focus again is primarily on the private sector. We look at private sector firms, entrepreneurs, entrepreneurial innovators that empower poor and vulnerable populations in the region. So that is basically our mandate and a little bit about what the work that we do at IDB Lab.
All right, wonderful. So that's quite interesting because, you know, the connection as you discussed, and I know both of you have components that include this, but access to financing is key. And that investment component for a budding entrepreneur is critical, right? And we also know that that is one of the most challenging aspects within our current environment here in Belize. So I'm looking forward to further discussions on that. But before we get there, Amilin, can you tell us a little bit more about some of the projects that you have happening at the moment and how this can connect to any Galen listener or any young Belizean across the board looking for opportunities on how they can either develop their business, learn how to develop their business, or learn how to expand upon their current small business?
Awesome. Thank you for that question, Katherine. As I stated, UNDP, we work and we support government entities and quasi-government entities. In this case, we're providing support to Bell Trade directly through a grant facility of $350,000. The name of the project is Building Resilient MSMEs, Accelerating Digitization. The root or the development of this project was based on the pandemic when everything was locked down. Businesses were unable to travel, to have contact with others. So it really pushed for innovation in real time here in Belize. The reason for the development of this grant, therefore, is to digitize these services and also to build the capacity of the MSMEs to sell their products online. Through this, we did the partnership with Bell Trade. They did 3 courses for small businesses focusing on intro to digitization, intro to digital marketing, and intro to social media. Through this initiative, over 260 MSMEs were trained, with 70% being women and 20% being youth. So that's something that we're really happy about. So that's one phase of the project. The other segment of the project focused on a virtual knowledge center. So, given the lockdown, we couldn't have access to Beltrade being on the road, offering their trainings and their interactions with MSMEs. Beltrade asked for us to digitize all their templates, their tools, and their training materials. So, this has been very instrumental because MSMEs are now able to go online and access all of these trainings from the comfort of their homes. So, this is a big leap and it's a difference because it creates accessibility to these training materials through Beltrade's portal. So that's the second portion.
Before you jump to the third portal, what you're describing in terms of the digital angle seems a lot like what we would define as an incubator, or at least a aspect of what is the traditional incubator for an entrepreneur. Break that down for me so that we can better understand what anybody listening here today can access when they actually go into that portal. I think that's critical. When you say training on what exactly? I loved what you said on the digitization and even like the analysis of analytics is critical, right? So I'm assuming that's a part of the first project. But the second project, how do we, how does somebody that feels they need that extra hand holding, how does the current system and what you have in terms of the virtual platform, how is that different from an incubator, and what encourages somebody who may prefer to be speaking one-on-one to at least investigate and look into and learn more about your second project component here that you just referenced?
Well, Katherine, thanks for that question. As it pertains to the Virtual Knowledge Center, the content that is developed there is all done by Beltrade based on the needs defined by the MSMEs through their engagements. This includes how to do your banking, how to do your accounting, how to digitize your business, how to produce social media content to increase your sales. So this was very important for the different MSMEs. And if you're a young entrepreneur, you can go online, you can check out the training content, and at the end of the self-paced course, you would receive a certification.
Okay. All right. So, all right. That's fantastic. So they actually get to be able to have that certificate that they can display in their offices, share on their websites, etc., etc. All right. Quite interesting. Thank you. And then I know there is a third project that is incorporated under the wider project. Could you tell us a little bit more about that third project, please?
Definitely. The third aspect of it is the Digital Connect Centers. What we're looking at here is pretty much a safe, reliable space for MSMEs, for women, and also for youth in rural cities, rural spaces, and also inner cities. It's pretty much like a small computer lab. You have internet, you have computers, You have someone there that can give you some assistance to log in into the virtual knowledge center and to do the self-paced training. So this is something very important for us because we always talk about digitization, and digitization typically can go into these bigger conversations with Bitcoin and all of that. But we want to ensure that there's inclusivity for rural communities and inner cities to ensure that everyone has some sort of access to training materials. What is being envisioned is a partnership with Beltrade and the e-governance unit. They have a national digital agenda, and they will develop a calendar of activities for MSMEs and for digital boot camps to be offered. So this is something that we're really looking at, and we're also doing multi-donor approach to it. UNDP is supporting the first pilot in partnership with Beltrade and e-governance. The second era will be focused in partnership with e-governance unit, and then the government of Taiwan is also supporting this. So we're
Okay.
looking forward to a wide rollout of services in the rural communities in the next coming months.
So I know we talked briefly about this, and I think this is important information to share with our audience. In terms of how, if you are living in Dangriga or living in Punta Gorda, and you want to be able to access this sort of resource, how do you know where to go? What's the closest to you where you can access this info?
So for the Digital Connect centers, the locations that we have that will be launched in December will be San Esteban Public Library, the Palmar Community Center, the SBD C Lab in Belize City. We have the Dangriga Department of Youth Services and also the Bea Vista Department of Youth Services.
Okay. All right. And as you said, right, your partner in this, so to say, is Beltrade. So accessing information through Beltrade, and you've partnered with them to establish, these projects that were defined as very much needed and encouraging of the thrive in order for us to have a thriving and inclusive entrepreneurial environment, in a sense, right? So thank you. Quite. It sounds like you've been very busy.
Definitely. It's pretty much like a satellite office for Beltrade in rural communities.
Okay, all right. So that's interesting. So and I don't want to get too much into this, but perhaps you can advise us here, or at least reference how we can access that information. But if there are satellite entity for Beltrade, how about the other services that Beltrade offers? That's going to be a part of the package as well. Do you know?
Well, right now we're still defining what all will be offered through the centers, and we'll be developing a calendar of activities that we will be sharing via social media.
Okay. That sounds quite interesting. All right. So check out that Beltrade website and also their social media pages as well. All right. And see that training put into action there, so to say.
Definitely. And
All
just
right.
in case you don't know, it's www.belizeinvest.org.bz.
Perfect. Or Google it. All
Definitely.
right, wonderful. So, Henry, giving you a chance to come and let us discuss a little bit more about this entrepreneurial ecosystem. As we've been saying, that word entrepreneurial is, is important, and it's relevant in so many ways, because we continue to talk about the importance and the impact of having a thriving entrepreneurial environment and what it means for the development of the country, what it means for the development of the middle class, what does it mean for the development into the longer term, a more diversified, a more inclusive work environment, business community that can then grow and develop in the global expanding world dynamic when it comes to do with business, right? So coming back, to that macro concept again, how would you describe where is Belize when it comes to do with that environment for entrepreneurial, for the thriving of entrepreneurial, for the thriving of an entrepreneurial spirit, right? Where are we? Are we And when I say thriving, I really mean we need to identify what is that right environment, what are the aspects to make that environment a thriving environment, and also an inclusive environment as well. So tell us a little bit about what your thoughts on that question is, and where would you want to see us go, and how IDB Labs comes into that.
Fantastic question, Catherine. Let me see if I can unpack it a bit, no,
Yeah,
and
it's
be
quite a bit.
brief with my response. But so, where is Belize in terms of that entrepreneurial stage or level? It's a very interesting question, a subjective one at that. But we look at it from the angle of seeing huge potential, extreme potential for us compared to our Caribbean and Latin American brothers and sisters. We are a little bit nascent in terms of our development, in terms of some of the new technology and new innovative uses of technology, for example, AI, blockchain, these types of technologies that are driving growth and innovation within the region. We're nascent, but it's exciting. It's exciting because we have immense potential. We have immense opportunity to capitalize on best practices, lessons learned from those first movers, if you will. Typically, when we're looking at an ecosystem, what comprises or what elements are needed to ensure that ecosystem and the players and stakeholders can thrive, we certainly look at critical inputs. These are some of the same inputs that Amilin has mentioned in terms of important advisory services, knowledge. That's crucial. That is very, very crucial based on previous experience, positive and both negative. I mentioned best practices, lessons learned. No, we're looking at also technical assistance in terms of developing value chains. So you would hear, for example, a lot of the offerings, the products, the services that our private sector exports or produces is very one-dimensional. But there is huge potential for growing and developing our value chains. For example, take the livestock industry, if you will. Instead of exporting a whole head of cattle, we can look at creating value chains, increasing the number of products and value-added products and services within that particular industry to command better prices, to develop the industry further, to compete regionally and globally. You know? So again, knowledge, technical assistance, connections, if you will, and of course, very, very important, access to capital, so financing. This is, again, as Amilin had mentioned earlier, is something that we see, again, has huge upside, huge potential for Belize. We're seeing the trend of e-wallets in terms of that fintech space, which is something just 2-3 years ago, before the onset of the global pandemic, we were unaware of locally, no? But now we're seeing that develop. And it's taking that organic pathway, and now you're having the information, the knowledge, you're having the connections with the stakeholders, with the vendors, with the different players within the system, the ecosystem, and now you're developing that specific industry. It's a very, very small example of fintech, but again, it lends to the point that we have tremendous upside in terms of where we are here in Belize and where we can go. So I would say those are the 3 areas that we look at in terms of critical inputs and critical factors that will push Belize's entrepreneurial ecosystem forward. And I want to also say, for us at IDB Lab, those are actually the 3 main components that we focus on and want to ensure that we can provide readily to all our clients, no? Within the private sector space. So again, connections, knowledge, and financing.
So I have a question. If I throw out a word, venture capitalist, when do you think that will happen in Belize?
I think we're already starting. It perhaps is not as public as many might know, but we are starting to uh, specifically in some of the larger private sector spaces. No, um, so when you're talking about venture capitalists or VC for short, uh, VC or venture capitalist funds, they are typically funds or firms or investors that look towards interesting opportunities, financial opportunities, uh, for either for profit or not for profit in terms of their approach to fund fledgling startup early stage technologies and businesses and business models. So where we are, we have several very small, I would say, approaches to VC simply because of the size of the market that we have locally. But again, the upside is tremendous for Belize.
Right, because their model is to take on that bigger risk, but potentially gain bigger rewards as well,
Absolutely,
right? So it's a
absolutely.
whole different concept on the investment component, and it can lead to other things like a potential stock market, et cetera, into the future. In terms of projects that connect back to that entrepreneurial theme that we have here today, is there any you would like to discuss, even if it's a partnership with another entity, that we can speak about that's underway that can then connect to the audience we have with us today?
So for us in IDB Lab, we work with, again, primarily the private sector, and we work with private sector agencies, firms, and organizations to support technical cooperation activities or projects, specifically in our priority areas. To date, we've been working in the areas of health, energy, agriculture, finance, MSME development, which again, kudos to Amilin and the team over at the United Nations for their work in that space as well, and other focus areas. We also are trying to work with young entrepreneurs and young businesses in the digitalization space as well. So, for example, some of the agencies that we've worked with so far, they include the Belize Chamber of Commerce and Industry, the Belize Livestock Producers Association, Oceana, Yakshe Conservation Trust, to name a few. To share with you an example of one of our interesting projects is the Fish Right, Eat Right project that was spearheaded by Oceana with funding support from IDB Lab. This project, excellent project, focused on Belize's blue economy, sustainable fishing, as well as providing sort of that foundation for value addition or income generation for fisher folk. Again, targeting marginalized end-of-mile beneficiaries, no? Fishing communities. So this project was to develop a virtual marketplace, a virtual platform, where the fisher folk, men and women included, can take directly their product, their marine resource that they've cultivated, harvest, caught sustainably from our marine spaces, and provide sort of a trail, a digital trail, a digital thumbprint, if you will, fingerprint that outlines the moment it was caught until that particular fish or whatever marine option you chose off that marketplace met your plate. So it speaks to sustainability. It speaks to the inclusion of technology within this traditional space, this fishing and marine space. And it speaks to innovation, capacity building, ensuring that the fisher folk and the fishing communities, they are trained in terms of the utilization of technology. They understand the upside of the value addition that having sort of that digital trail of their product would command a larger price, for example. So there's additional income at the end of the day. So those are some of the aspects in terms of projects that outline our portfolio. We look at, again, capacity building. We look at the inclusion of technology. We look at impact and innovation for the end of mile beneficiaries, as we call them.
Thanks for sharing that, Henry. I'm happy to hear that IDB is doing work with the Fisher folks in terms of the blue economy. At UNDP, we also have a similar project called the Small Grants Program. You're able to access it once a year. The information is made public via newspaper, the UNDP website, the Small Grants Program website as well. And we offer grants from 5,000 US to 50,000 US to CSOs specifically. We also work with women and youth-led organizations. So this is something big for us. And the key areas that we look at is number one, community landscape and seascape conservation. Anything that can protect the coastline and the marine areas, the terrestrial areas, in terms of innovation, and while you're making funds, of course, for your livelihood. Two is climate smart innovation, agroecology, anything that can be focused in reducing carbon dioxide and emissions and enhancing resilience for the country, specifically looking at the forest and biological corridors. And three, low carbon energy access. That is another area that we're looking at. Any investments to reduce your carbon footprint. So uh, you are eligible for $5,000 to $50,000 for CSOs, and then larger organizations can access up to 150,000 US dollars. And the focal point for this project is Lionel Requena. He's the national coordinator. So this is his baby, definitely. He would be more than happy to help anyone who would want to learn more information on this. And you can contact him at 822-2462. He would be more than happy to answer any questions you may have. But this is a big opportunity for CSOs and for cooperatives in the fisheries area, cooperatives in the agricultural sector, because since 1993 to 2018, we financed $7.1 million US in projects. So it is something that is well known, it's well trusted. We're always looking for innovative projects that can protect the environment, whether it's by land or by sea, while ensuring livelihood for people.
Quite interesting. Thanks, Amilin. In terms of closing words, I'd really love to hear a little bit more about how you see UNDP partnering in a Galen collaboration into the future.
Well, thanks for asking that question. I'm always looking for an excited pipeline project, and we would be more than happy to work with Galen. So, something that I've been quite passionate about and we've been talking about in this space is access to finance. We've always said access to finance is a key issue for MSMEs in the country. We don't have enough money. And surprisingly enough, we have enough money available at the DFC now. I know that IDB has a facility for 17 million US dollars, and the government of Taiwan also provided a facility for 5 million US dollars specifically for women MSMEs. And it has been a little bit slow for the finances to trickle out. And the reason is I think twofold based on some conversations that we've had is how the information is marketed and how it is condensed into a digestible format for micro business specifically. And how do you create that confidence for micro businesses to go to DFC and put together their submissions to get approved? Data that we collected through our socioeconomic impact assessment shows that 17% of women who apply for small loans are approved. And 17% is really a small percentage. So it's something that we really need to take a deep dive into. I was at a regional conference with my UNDP colleagues and I asked, guys, what can we do? What are you doing in your countries? And my colleague from Colombia and Latin America, they shared that they've done partnerships with academia, universities such as Galen, and they work with the business department to see how they can be a hand-holding support services, whereby the students help micro businesses to put together their submission for consideration for loan approval. So this is something that I think we can really look at in partnership.
I fully agree. That is an area that very much, there is a need for support and a collaboration with an academic entity, and then the direct access to that financial institution is critical, right? So that's wonderful. I'm very happy to hear that. So I look forward to perhaps next year we're talking about another topic connected to entrepreneurship or connected to business development. And this is actually one of the achieved tasks. So fantastic. Thank you. So Henry, coming back to what are some programs executed by your organization to provide technical support for entrepreneurs?
Okay, thank you again, Katherine. So we're excited for two upcoming projects that we have in the pipeline. These projects are, knock on wood, scheduled for approval before the end of the year, hopefully the end of this month. And we are looking in terms of the sector area that these projects are going to be impacting. The first is in Belize's blue economy and marine space, again, simply because of the wealth of natural marine resources that we have, no? And the challenges that the stakeholders on a day-to-day basis face in terms of conservation and adaptation and proper management of these spaces. So this project is going to be executed by the Turnef Atoll Sustainability Association, TASA. And in terms of the expected impact, just to be brief, we're looking at over 150 active fisher folk being aimed at in terms of using advanced marine management and conservation tools. We're looking at 300 new income opportunities being generated, again, disaggregated by gender. We want to ensure that we have a very inclusive mandate moving forward. And of course, just the marine space itself, over 255,000 hectares of marine seascape under enhanced sustainable management and conservation through this project. So in terms of its main objective, the project is seeking to contribute to the conservation and adaptation efforts of the Turnef Atoll Marine Reserve through the implementation of digital technologies to improve, again, management of these important marine spaces that we have. Secondly, we have a new project coming up with the Belize Chamber of Commerce and Industry. In terms of its expected impact, the project will be targeting about 250 MSMEs in a pilot engagement where we're looking to have digital business advisors trained specifically to implement capacity building activities throughout the life of this project. We're looking at technical programs being developed and aimed specifically at micro enterprises and MSMEs to boost their digital transformation. And we're looking at providing funding opportunities with partners from the private and possibly public sector stakeholders. So again, this is going to be executed by BCCI. And the main objective of this project is to strategically drive digitalization efforts here in Belize, specifically in the MSME sector, to ensure that the continuity of business operations under the new normal, if you will, post-pandemic, and provide a gateway for these MSMEs to realize the numerous advantages that can be achieved through the implementation of a digital transformation in terms of boosting their operational efficiency, their responsiveness, and their ability to improve customer service and quality, and of course, generating new sources of income. So we're excited for those two new projects to come on board for early 2023.
Okay, quite interesting. So again, and we're hearing a similar theme, right? Digital transformation, MSMEs, SMEs, entrepreneurial the climate or environment, and how does the digital transformation, how do we take advantage of what's available to us on the ground. And I must say, thank you very much for your collaboration and contributions. I know you're out there speaking in various regional, international platforms about what potential Belize has. So we appreciate your efforts there. And I'm sure the many entrepreneurs here in Belize are looking forward to taking advantage of these many opportunities. Henry, coming back to a similar question we asked Amilin, tell us how you can see, how you into the future, what you can see as a potential collaboration between Galen and IDB Lab.
So we, again, going back to the three main critical inputs that drive development of an entrepreneurial ecosystem, connections, knowledge, and financing, we see Galen possibly partner as a preferred partner in terms of supporting the interventions within those three critical inputs. So in terms of connection, we want to ensure that the inclusion gap is reduced by supporting MSMEs, supporting entrepreneurs through different ecosystem players. So providing that connectivity, that networking, if you will. Galen's large reach in terms of their academic footprint speaks both in the public and private sector space. So that would be a fantastic opportunity in terms of partnering with Galen to establish and develop and enrich and engender connections within the entrepreneurial ecosystem. Knowledge, of course, Galen, as one of our premier tertiary institutions, has a wealth of knowledge in different spaces, different areas. Not only when we speak of entrepreneurial activities or entrepreneurship, are we speaking from a business mindset. That is very important, but we need to also look at innovation. We need to look at new areas, new ideas, new areas for development, new areas that Belize can capitalize on with our natural capital, our human capital, and of course, bridging that gap with knowledge, proper knowledge and information to support these efforts of our ecosystem players. And of course, in terms of financing, knowledge is key to ensure that our stakeholders and ecosystem players have the proper information to be able to access the funding. As Amilin spoke of earlier, financing is there. However, there are certain requirements, there are certain prerequisites that must be met by young entrepreneurs, MSMEs, in order to be able to access capital to start up and provide funding for their ventures. So we see Galen as a strong partner in those fronts.
So a facilitator in the process of, connecting that entrepreneur that is looking for the funding and that financial institution through, the establishment of capacity building, connected, with reporting components, also business proposal aspects, et cetera, et cetera. So, yep, that's quite interesting. It's always exciting to hear about all these different projects that are happening. And as we talked about, you hear that common theme of, digitization and the environment as well. And as Amilin was saying, some female empowerment angles as well, right? So there is so much potential out there. So we encourage our audience to, listen up, learn more. Go and check out that Beltrade website and the website for these institutions as well, and learn more about how you can take advantage of these opportunities or the connections locally that will enable you to take advantage of these opportunities. So thank you very much to both of you today. Again, thank you for all that hard work and for supporting Belize and supporting entrepreneurship.